The Garfield movie is the newest animated movie based off the character Garfield from the original comic strip. He's had many movies and cartoon series at this point, a couple live actions, a few animated, I believe a few animated shows, and this just kind of follows his character. He's this pudgy little cat, if you're not familiar with him, who's orange, and he loves lasagnas and hates Mondays. Very basic character with this nice humor to him. So this is a movie based off of him. So the plot of this movie is pretty basic. It's Garfield as a kitten. He's abandoned by his father, as a kitten, and he gets found by John, his owner, John Arbuckle, and he grows up in this life that he absolutely loves. He gets all the food he can eat. He has family with John and the dog Odie, who's kind of like his best friend slash butler who does everything for him. So he loves his life, and his dad Vic comes back into his life, just throwing everything into chaos. So that's the basic premise of this movie without giving away too much of it. There's honestly not a lot to this movie. It's not like a very complicated story. It's very basic, but that's the basic story. Garfield living a normal life. His dad Vic comes into it and just throws it all into chaos. So this movie was okay to me. I liked the animation. I thought some of the voice acting was good. There was an okay story there. It wasn't overly complicated. It had some emotional moments that I think hit for me, and some comedy that I felt was okay. But for the most part, not everything worked for me. Like I said, there was some comedy that worked for me that I thought was good, but a lot of the time it was slapstick humor, which I don't love, and that also just kind of went on for far too long, in my opinion. There'd be scenes with Garfield getting hurt, and it just be going on for, like, it felt like minutes. Maybe it was shorter, but it went on far too long, in my opinion. And I've never really known Garfield to be super slapsticky. There is some slapstick comedy to the character, but this sometimes came off as more of Looney Tunes slapstick humor, which for me doesn't work for the character. I always liked his more mundane, monotone kind of personality where he's like, I hate Mondays, lasagna's good, He's just kind of a weird, odd, funny character, which in this movie is a little bit different. He's a little bit more active and more energetic, I think. And I'm not a huge Garfield fan. I watched the original animated series and some specials when I was younger, and I read a lot of the comic strips, but he does kind of feel like a little bit of a different character. Maybe he's more like this in modern media, and I understand why they kind of make him that way. He can't be like monotone and kind of weird throughout the entire movie. He has to be, a little bit more, but it didn't necessarily work for me. There is a few good emotional plots and points that happen between him and his dad. I don't think they all hit, in my opinion. There's a lot of times where they just kind of throw the information at you, and they're like, "Hey, this is why this is happening," or "This is my realization," and it just kind of doesn't work. It's like you need to let the characters and the audience figure things out without explaining it to us, which I'll get a little bit more into details in spoilers. So, like I said, I think it was an okay movie. There's a lot to enjoy in the movie, but there's a lot that I think could have been better, and I think that's the thing that holds it back. Chris Pratt, who voices Garfield, does an okay job. By the end of the movie, it didn't really bother me, but in the beginning, I was just like, I don't know, but he does a decent job. I don't think when I think of Garfield, that's the type of voice I hear in my head. I always felt like he had a more like Mickey Mouse. He has that iconic voice. You hear Mickey Mouse, you're gonna know it's Mickey Mouse. Like if they got a different actor to voice Mickey Mouse and it didn't sound like Mickey Mouse, you can kind of tell. And it's kind of the same thing with Garfield. He kind of sounds like Garfield, but not really, so it kind of throws it off in my opinion. But whatever, that could just be me. So I'm gonna talk spoilers. Before that, I give the movie a 6.5 out of 10. It's a good movie. It's a decent movie. If you love the character, go check it out. If you're just interested in it because you love animated movies, yeah, go check it out. I don't think it's going to be too horrible. Alright, so spoilers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, spoilers. You've been warned. I'm talking. Yeah, so the movie is about Garfield and his dad Vic. Uh, so there's this cat named Jinx who used to be part of Vic's old crew, and she ended up getting captured during this milk heist, and she blames Vic. So she kidnaps Garfield in the beginning of the movie. He gets found by a bird randomly, and so he gets kidnapped, and Vic goes to save Garfield. And essentially, Jinx is like, well, you know, I went to jail for 4 years, so you owe me milk for that amount of time. So you need to go back to this milk farm while I was arrested and steal a big old truck full of milk to make up your debt to me. So the movie pretty much is a heist movie with Garfield and Vic going to this milk farm and trying to steal the milk back and kind of learning about each other, and Garfield learning why Vic abandoned him. Like I said, it's very basic. It doesn't really make any sense why Garfield would have to go. The only reason he goes is because Jinx just like, I like that you guys don't get along and torture each other, being around each other. So I'm gonna make Garfield go with you, Vic. That's the only reason he goes on this journey with Vic. He doesn't go because he, he feels love towards his dad, even though he's mad at him that he got abandoned. He is forced to go because if he doesn't go, Jinx is going to make these two dogs that are her henchmen, beat him up or kill him or whatever. So Garfield and Vic and Odie, who of course joins them because he's loyal to Garfield, go on this journey to steal the milk. Like I said, a bunch of comedic stuff happens, and we get a few emotional beats where we, as the audience, get to learn why Vic abandoned Garfield. And to me, it kind of makes sense, but it all doesn't work. Like when I started watching the movie, Vic leaves Garfield in this alley, and then he leaves. And after like 10 minutes, Garfield goes and finds John, and like kind of moves on. And I'm just like, well, if Garfield waited, if it, like a few days would have passed, I think it would have made more sense. Like Garfield felt like he was actually abandoned, but we find out that Garfield and Vic were starving at that time, so Vic saw some food in the alley and he went to get it, and he kind of got stuck there because there was a human talking on the phone, which I felt like he honestly could have just ran past. So he was stuck there for like a couple of hours, and then Garfield left, and when Vic got back with the food, he saw that Garfield was John and eating a bunch of food and kind of happy, so he decided to let John raise Garfield because he felt like that would be a better home for him. So we find that out. It's kind of a nice emotional moment. Like I said, I don't think it completely works. Like I said, he didn't have to stay in that alleyway the entire time, but I do get Vic's motivation that he wanted his son to be happy, and he felt that this person can provide that happiness better than he could because, they were starving on the street. So they're at the milk farm, and they get the help of this old bull who used to be one of the mascots of the milk farm. He agrees to help him because his girlfriend, wife, or whatever is stuck at the milk farm. When this corporation bought the milk farm, they separated him and they, threw him out of the farm. And he's old and kind of beat up because he's tried to break in so many times. So he agrees to help him. And honestly, I kind of felt like the story between the bulls was a little bit more interesting, and I kind of was a little bit more invested because you could see that they actually loved and cared about each other. So anyway, they come up with a plan to break in. And of course, it kind of fails, kind of succeeds. So when they get in there, everything starts going wrong. Right away, Garfield and Odie end up in this. Well, Garfield ends up in this place, and Odie goes to help him in this cheese place where like it's very dangerous and they could die there. And Vic has to make a choice between getting the milk truck and getting his son. And of course, he goes to save his son. They make it seem like this big deal, like, oh, is he going to save Garfield? Is he going to save Garfield? Or he's going to go after the milk? But he never really cared about the milk. Like, you don't get the feeling that the milk is more important to Garfield at all until this moment. They're like, oh, is he going to go for the milk and save himself? I'm like, we already know he's a good guy and why he abandoned Garfield. He's not going to abandon Garfield. So he saves Garfield from this cheese death trap thing. And then they go get the milk truck, but they're stopped by this police security guard who works for the company. And Vic ends up, throwing Garfield and Odie at them and leaving him behind. So Garfield and Odie get captured by the security guard, and Vic takes off with the milk truck. And Garfield's just like, I knew it. I knew I couldn't trust my dad. I knew he was just a lying scumbag. Because throughout the movie we're told like he's like this bad person, but we never really see it. He always seems like this good guy. So Big goes to deliver the milk, and Jinx is just like, it wasn't ever about the milk. It was about, I wanted to see you get captured by the security guard and go to the pound/jail, like I did. That was going to be my revenge. But since you freaking succeeded, I'm going to have to punish you a different way. And then we see Garfield in the pound. And at the pound, again, this is where it's kind of clunky. He's surrounded by Vic's old crew. And they're like, yeah, we kicked him out of our crew because he wasn't loyal to us or whatever. And this is, again, the exposition is just kind of clunky. He's like, yeah, every time we had a heist, he would always just abandon us to go see his son. And Garfield's just like, that's bull. He never came to see me. And it's like, nope, he used to stay in this tree across the house. And he said he would always mark it and just wait for his son to show, or just watch his son every time they had Sunday family dinner or something like that. So Garfield's like, that's bull. But then John shows up and he saves Odie and Garfield because they're tagged, so they were able to get located. So they go back home, and Garfield's about to eat all this lasagna. He's happy again. He's like, forget Vic. I don't care about him. Whatever. And he sees the tree across the window that supposedly Vic was staying in. So he's like, I'm going to go check it out to see if this story about him checking in on me my entire life is true. So he goes and he checks the tree. And at first he doesn't see anything and he lays back. And then he looks up and he sees all these freaking hash marks of Vic every time he came to visit and look for Garfield. So he realizes that, oh, Vic did actually love me and he was telling the truth. And then we get a big, again, exposition kind of like, oh, he must have, abandoned me at the milk factory because he knew me and Odie were tagged and we would have been rescued. And so that's why he did it. And he actually loves me or whatever. And it, again, kind of clunky where he figures that out. I'm just like, we kind of know that, but it's just, it's weird how they give us that information. So he goes to save Vic, who's on this train, and he's about to get thrown off a bridge by Jinx and her henchmen. Garfield shows up with the bull, who they team up again, and they end up saving Vic. Nothing too crazy, and the movie essentially ends with Vic moving in with Garfield. Like, there's a bunch of end credit stuff where him living there, which is kind of nice. It's kind of good. He becomes part of the family. So that's where the movie ends. Like I said, it's a decent movie. There's a lot of clunky stuff. I did like the aspect of the two bulls who loved each other. I thought that was good stuff. They do get a happy ending and get back together at the end. And I do like Vic becoming part of the family and that he wasn't a really bad person. But that was one of the things that bugged me about the movie. I'm like, it's clear that he's not a bad person. But the movie tries to trick you a couple of times into thinking he is. But I'm like, we haven't seen him be a horrible person, really. He loves his son and tries to connect, so where's this coming from? Anyway, decent movie, 6.5 out of 10. Not bad. I would say check it out. So that's it. If you watched the movie, did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.